the department is realigning the portfolios for 3 Deputy Assistant Secretary positions that are nested under the ASD for Strategy, Plans, and Capabilities, and who would directly report to Mr. Dahmer if you are confirmed. Additionally, I'm concerned about the President's recent statements on nuclear testing. Breaking the testing moratorium maintained since the 1990s would be strategically reckless, in my view, inevitably prompting Russia, China, and others to resume their own programs.
In the solemn halls of the Senate, a voice rose with both grief and grit, honoring Dick Cheney, a soldier of service, whose compass was carved in the Constitution's script. Then the questions began to thunder softly to 3 who sought the mantle of defense, their oaths not yet sworn, their futures uncertain, their duties tangled in bureaucratic suspense. Mr. Dreimer, keeper of strategy and might, found his title shifted overnight. Plans and capabilities turned to plans and forces, but power, like names, hides many courses. The senator warned, "We must not be blind. Our duty is to know the power we bind." Would America's sword still face the East? Would China and Russia remain the feast of focus and planning? Or would the shield turn homeward, leaving allies unhealed? Then Dr. Cadlick took the stage of thought, his hands once deep in bioplots. Yet nuclear dawns are darker.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I do want to add my comments regarding the passing of the Vice President, Dick Cheney. He was a dedicated public servant. His entire life was involved with public service, and he had a profound respect for the Constitution and conducted himself in that way constantly. We disagreed in certain times, but no one could doubt his sincerity in his service to the nation. Good morning to our witnesses, and congratulations on your nomination. I would like to welcome you and your family members. I'm a little bit jealous of Mr. Borda's son. He's the best dressed person in the room, but what can you say? Mr. Dahmer, you are nominated to be Assistant Secretary of Defense for Strategy, Plans, and Capabilities. This is one of the most consequential policy positions in the department, responsible for advising the Secretary of Defense on the National Defense Strategy, force planning, contingency operations, and global force posture. However, I would note that the committee was informed just 2 days ago that this position title has apparently changed to Assistant Secretary of Defense for Strategy, Plans, and Forces. The department indicated that this is merely a cosmetic change, and the new title more appropriately reflects the organization's mission. They also stated that all duties and responsibilities of this office remain unchanged. However, from the limited information we have been given, this does not appear to be accurate. The department is realigning the portfolios for 3 Deputy Assistant Secretary positions that are nested under the ASD for Strategy, Plans, and Capabilities, and who would directly report to Mr. Dahmer if you are confirmed. Specifically, according to the information provided to the committee late yesterday, responsibility for AUKUS, which belonged to the DASD for Force Development and Emerging Capabilities portfolio, will now be transferred to a different Assistant Secretary of Defense. Reviewing the roles and responsibilities of office is not unusual, and sometimes it's needed. Normally, when the department conducts such a reorganization, it will send to the committee a summary of those changes for our review and consideration before the committee proceeds with the nomination. This is important because the Senate has a constitutional duty to advise and consent on all Senate-confirmed nominees. As such, having a basic understanding of a nominee's duties is imperative to our oversight role. Unfortunately, that did not happen in this case. Rather, we were informed this weekend that these changes had been made, and they were designed to, quote, realign certain policy activities and rebrand parts of the organization to better reflect the priorities of the Trump administration, close quote. In fact, according to the memorandum that was provided to the committee, these changes were made last month and were effective as of October 8th, 2025, and yet the department never notified the committee of these changes, even though it had ample opportunity to do so prior to today's hearing. Mr. Dahmer, given that the committee has not had the opportunity to review all the changes, I would ask you to explain what your understanding is of the changes to the portfolio to which you have been nominated. The department has been developing the forthcoming National Defense Strategy, and while the NDS has not yet been released, there has been considerable reporting and considerable concern about its strategic direction. Reports indicate that new strategy will emphasize domestic and regional missions at the expense of competing with China in the Indo-Pacific. Mr. Dahmer, both the 2018 and 2022 National Defense Strategies clearly prioritize long-term strategic competition with China and Russia as our pacing challenges. I would like to understand whether you agree with that assessment or whether you believe that the Department of Defense should be primarily focused on homeland security and domestic military operations. Similarly, I am concerned that the forthcoming global posture review calls for significant reduction of U.S. troops from Europe and the Middle East, which could have strategic consequences for our alliances. Indeed, as the chairman has pointed out, we've already withdrawn troops or directed the withdrawal of troops from Romania, all of that done without any consultation with the Congress and in any specific articulation of a national defense policy changes. So I would ask you to explain these proposals. Dr. Kadlec, you are nominated to be Assistant Secretary of Defense for Nuclear Deterrence, Chemical and Biological Defense Policy and Programs. This is a new position created by the fiscal year 25 NDAA, combining nuclear weapons policy and acquisition with chemical and biological defense programs. Your expertise in biodefense is significant, as you have served in senior policy positions, the Pentagon, Special Operations Command, and the Department of Health and Human Services. Indeed, I think your presence will add greatly because this topic has been biological, offensive and defensive positions have been, I think, under considered by the department. However, this position emphasizes nuclear weapons policy and acquisition. And Dr. Kadlec, I'd like to understand what qualifications you bring to managing the department's nuclear portfolio during this critical modernization period. Additionally, I'm concerned about the President's recent statements on nuclear testing. Breaking the testing moratorium maintained since the 1990s would be strategically reckless, in my view, inevitably prompting Russia, China, and others to resume their own programs. Dr. Kadlec, I would like to know your perspective on the destabilizing effects such testing could have on an already fragile non-proliferation architecture. Finally, Mr. Borders, you are nominated to be the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Energy, Installations, and Environment. This position provides oversight of all Air Force and Space Force installations worldwide, including military construction, housing, operational energy, environmental protection, and PFAS remediation. I want to thank you for your career of military service and congratulate you on your recent retirement. However, I must note it is highly unusual for an active duty field grade officer to retire and immediately assume a Senate-confirmed position. I would appreciate your testimony on how your career has prepared you for this position. Among many issues for the Air Force, I am particularly concerned about installation resilience. Extreme weather has cost the department billions in damage and recovery, which compromises readiness and mission execution. I would like to know what steps you would take to mitigate the costly impacts of extreme weather on our installations. Additionally, you have previously advocated for significant policy changes to address military housing shortages. If confirmed, I would like to know how you would implement those proposals across the Air Force and Space Force, and how you would ensure rigorous oversight of both privatized housing and enlisted barracks. Again, to all our nominees, thank you, and I look forward to your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.